Welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever picked up an ancient text, maybe even a sacred one like the book of Leviticus, and just felt completely lost?
Oh, absolutely.
You hear whispers of old rituals, talk of sacrifices, blood, fire, and it can feel a little, well, off-putting, maybe.
Or just confusing. Yeah.
Right, just plain confusing. You might find yourself asking, what does any of this even mean for us today?
It's true. For many, it seems archaic, maybe even focused on appeasing some kind of, angry, distant god.
Yeah.
But what's truly fascinating is that when you actually take a deep dive into these ancient sources, you discover this profound, beautiful logic hidden beneath what just looked like incredibly complex rules.
A logic hidden in there.
Yes, a logic that really makes sense once you get it.
Yeah.
And it truly makes you see these texts in a whole new light. It's quite amazing, actually.
So our mission today is to try and uncover some of that logic. We're going to challenge a really common assumption about a key part of this system, the Ola offering,
The burnt offering.
often called the burnt offering or Holocaust in older translations. Most people instinctively think it was the very first thing someone would do, to get God's attention or favor.
That's the common view, definitely.
But what if the deepest dive into these texts reveals that's precisely not where you start? What if it's actually the powerful climax of an even more profound journey of devotion?
Exactly.
We're going to try and simplify this today so you can grasp those aha moments without feeling overwhelmed, seeing this ancient text with fresh eyes, even if you're maybe brand new to these ideas.
Yeah, and this deep dive, hopefully, will offer a fresh perspective on what it truly means to approach and respond to a divine presence, not just back then, but maybe even in our lives right now.
Okay.
It's really about seeing God's incredible initiative, not just focusing on ours.
Okay, so let's unpack this common misconception about the Ola. You might picture an ancient Israelite, they commit a sin, and they immediately think, okay, I need to make a big burnt offering right now to fix this.
That's the mental image, yeah.
But our sources suggest this isn't the case at all. And to understand why, we're going to start with, well, a surprising figure, King David.
King David, often considered Israel's sort of chief theologian, their top thinker on understanding God.
Right.
And he finds himself in this terrible spiritual crisis after his profound sins of adultery and murder. Just awful.
Yeah.
And he knows he can't simply walk into the tabernacle and offer a sacrifice as if everything is fine. It doesn't work like that.
And he can't just pretend.
No. In Psalm 51, he pours out his heart, lamenting, "For you do not desire sacrifice." And here he means a ziba. We'll get to that. Or I would give it, "You do not delight in burnt offering." That's the Ola. He's essentially saying, God, if there were just a ritual I could do to fix this deep breach, I'd do it in a heartbeat. But I know these specific offerings aren't the answer for what I've done.
Wow. That's quite striking, isn't it? David, the man supposedly after God's own heart, understood that these particular offerings were not available to him in that moment. Now, we've talked before about a ziba that was a kind of communion meal, right? Like a celebratory feast shared with God.
Exactly. Like sitting down for dinner with a friend, sharing that piece.
Okay, so clearly David, having shattered his relationship, his covenant bond through his actions, he couldn't just sit down and celebrate a peace meal with God. That connection was severely damaged.
Makes sense. The communion was broken.
But why couldn't he offer an Ola? What was it about that total burnt offering that was also inaccessible to him? This question, I think, really leads us to the heart of ancient worship and how it actually worked. It reveals something quite counterintuitive.
It does. And to truly understand the Ola, we first need to establish the real starting point of God's relationship with Israel. It's not found in Leviticus, actually, not in an individual offering there.
Oh, where then?
It's in a foundational covenant ceremony described much earlier, back in Exodus chapter 24. This event sets up the entire relationship, and it might just surprise you how it works.
Okay, Exodus 24, what happens there?
Well, Moses mediates this covenant, and then what he does next in verse 8 is truly remarkable. He sprinkles the blood of the covenant, not just on the altar, which represents God's side of things, but directly on the people.
On the people themselves, wow.
Yes, directly on the people. This wasn't about trying to appease an angry God to get him to show up or pay attention. This was an act of unification.
Unification.
Like two parties signing a contract in blood, essentially.
Whoa.
Creating a shared life, a legal spiritual bond between God and his people. The blood signified a deep shared life that was already established. It's this powerful statement. God has already chosen to be here with them.
Okay, so God initiates. He makes the first move to bond with them.
That's exactly it. And the ceremony culminates amazingly, with the elders of Israel actually seeing God and then eating and drinking in his presence. That's Exodus 24.11.
Eating and drinking with God.
In his presence, yes. This highlights a crucial premise for understanding all of Leviticus. God's presence and communion with him are already established by his incredible grace, by his own choice.
So the whole system that follows isn't about getting God to show up.
No. The Levitical system, therefore, isn't about creating this relationship or trying to make God appear. It's about maintaining and expressing it once it's already there. Once he has already chosen graciously to dwell among you.
Okay, that flips things around. This God is already here logic. Does that show up anywhere else?
It does, beautifully. It's reflected in the tabernacle's design instructions back in Exodus.
House.
You might expect instructions for building God's dwelling place to start with, the foundations, the outer walls, like any normal building.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But they don't. They begin with the most sacred object, the very heart of the tabernacle, the Ark of the Covenant.
The Ark first.
Yes, where God promised to speak from the mercy seat, his very throne in their midst. The instructions go inside out.
Inside out.
First the Ark, then the furniture of the holy place, and only then do you get to the outer court with the bronze altar for burnt offerings. This sequence is a profound theological statement. It means that worship isn't primarily a human effort trying to attract a distant God.
It's a response.
It's a divinely ordered response moving from the outside in towards a God who has already chosen, by pure grace, to dwell among his people. So the bronze altar where those sacrifices were made, it isn't the entry point to God. It's kind of the final stop on this liturgical journey, a journey leading deeper and deeper in towards the holiness already present at the very center.
Wow. Okay, so it's the culmination, not the beginning.
Precisely.
So if the ola, the burnt offering, isn't the first step, what is? You mentioned a journey, a ladder.
Yes. Our sources reveal a clear liturgical ladder, you could call it. An ordered ascent towards total worship. It's like a series of intentional steps you take to prepare yourself to truly meet God, moving closer and closer.
A ladder. I like that image.
And surprisingly, it begins not really up in the spiritual realm, but right here on earth.
On earth? How?
That's right. The journey towards God often begins horizontally.
Horizontally?
With our relationships with each other. It's not just about you and God in isolation.
Okay, so if the pathway to God starts surprisingly close to home, what's the very first step on that ladder?
Step 1, restitution, the Asham offering. If an Israelite wronged a neighbor, maybe through fraud or failing to return something, or even, inadvertently misusing something sacred, their first obligation wasn't a ritual.
No. What then?
It was to make things right with the person they wronged. They had to repair the damage caused, fully, sometimes even adding an extra fifth of its value as a kind of penalty.
So deal with the person you hurt first.
Exactly. The Torah establishes this fundamental truth. You cannot be at peace with God if you're sort of at war with your neighbor. The Asham offering, the guilt offering, could only be made after this horizontal repair was done.
Okay.
It was about restoring community peace first. A worshiper with unresolved debts or wrongs against their community. Well, they simply weren't in a position yet to offer themselves completely to God.
That makes so much sense. It's like, trying to rebuild a bridge with a friend you've wronged before you even think about showing up to their party.
Exactly right.
And this also sheds more light on David, doesn't it? If he committed adultery and murder, well, he clearly hadn't made restitution to Bathsheba or Uriah's family. He couldn't even take this first step properly.
He was stuck at the bottom of the ladder, spiritually speaking.
So what happens once those horizontal relationships are, ideally at least, mended? Where do you go from there on the ladder?
Then you move to step 2, purification, the Jatat offering. Sometimes called the sin offering, but purification is maybe a better sense.
Purification, okay.
After mending community ties, the worshiper addressed things like ceremonial impurities or unintentional sins. In their worldview, sin wasn't just a moral failing. It was seen almost like a toxic substance.
Toxic?
Yeah, something that polluted the sacred space, like a stain threatening to repel God's holy presence. So the Jatat offering came in to clean the sanctuary itself.
So it cleans the place, not just the person.
Its main goal wasn't primarily about forgiving individual moral guilt in a modern legal sense, but to ritually cleanse the very environment of worship. The blood from this offering was handled in specific ways, like a powerful ritual cleanser, designed to remove that spiritual grime from the sacred space.
Okay.
It prepared the sacred space so that God's communion with his people could continue without hindrance. And crucially, the person offering it never ate from this ritual. It was a solemn cleansing, not a celebration.
So it's about preparing the environment for God's presence, making sure the space is clean for him to be there comfortably, like doing a deep spiritual cleanup of the meeting place.
You got it.
And if David's actions had metaphorically polluted the sacred space, he couldn't just walk in without this purification either?
Precisely.
Okay, restitution, purification.
Yeah.
And only now, after this upward journey, can we move to the next vital step.
Exactly. Step 3, communion. The Ziba Shalimin, often translated as the peace offering or fellowship offering.
The piecemeal we mentioned.
Yes. With the community restored by restitution and the sanctuary purified by the Jitat, the worshiper could finally reach the heart of the covenant relationship, communion. This was the Ziba Shelamin, the only true shared meal.
Shared how?
Parts were offered to God on the altar, representing his share. Parts went to the priest, who mediated. And the rest was returned to the worshiper for a joyful feast in God's presence, often shared with family and friends.
A real celebration.
Absolutely. It was a true celebration of shalom, that rich Hebrew word meaning peace, wholeness, completeness, well-being. It confirmed the relationship was intact and celebrated it with joy. This is the meal David knew he couldn't have.
Okay, this whole sequence is building towards something incredible. Restitution, purification, communion. And then, and only then, comes the big one. The one that's often misunderstood and put right at the beginning.
Yes. Finally, step 4, consummation. The olah, the burnt offering.
The climax.
The climax. The olah, its name comes from the Hebrew root Allah, meaning to ascend or go up.
So ascending offering.
Exactly. It represents complete consecration, total surrender to God. Unlike the Ziva peace offering, nothing was shared back with the worshiper.
Nothing at all.
Nope. The entire animal, except the skin, which went to the priest, was consumed by fire on the altar. Its smoke literally ascended as a pleasing aroma to Yahweh.
A pleasing aroma, symbolizing what?
Well, the offerer, by placing their hands on the animal before it was sacrificed, identified with it. It symbolized their whole self, their entire being fully consecrated, fully given over to God, ascending to him.
So it wasn't about doing this to get something from God?
No, not primarily. It was about expressing absolute submission and pure adoration to the covenant God whose presence and favor were already enjoyed because of the steps before. It was worship for God's sake alone. Pure, unreserved devotion. Latria, in theological terms.
Wow. Okay, this finally clarifies David's lament perfectly, doesn't it? If the Olah is about total surrender and a consecrated heart, then David, having just committed adultery and murder, with a heart that was clearly corrupt and not yet fully repentant, he simply couldn't offer it. He hadn't climbed the ladder. He wasn't ready for that step.
Absolutely. How could he offer an olah, a picture of complete ascending devotion, when his heart was riddled with sin, not consecrated? His life wasn't ascending in worship at that point. It had plunged into betrayal.
Right.
Offering an animal symbolizing total devotion while his own inner reality was shattered. Well, it would have been the worst kind of hypocrisy. The ritual would have been meaningless, just empty smoke, without the true inner reality it was meant to symbolize.
That makes so much sense now. And this understanding, the sequence, is it confirmed elsewhere, like in how worship was actually practiced?
Yes, powerfully confirmed when we look at the inauguration of the priesthood in Leviticus chapter 9.
Okay, what happens there?
It doesn't start with an olah just to attract God or make him appear. Instead, there's this meticulous sequence of preparatory rites. First, Aaron, the high priest, offers a jatat, purification, and an olah for himself to make him fit to mediate.
He needs prepping first.
Yes. Then the same types of offerings, a jatat, an olah, and peace offerings, ziba shalamin, are made for the people. The whole ladder, essentially.
That's whole sequence.
The whole sequence. And only after this full sequence of purification and communion is complete does the central divine event occur.
Fire.
Fire. Yes. Fire came out from before Yahweh
Yeah.
and consumed the burnt offering on the altar. That's Leviticus 9.24.
Wow, fire from heaven.
Exactly. And this is a critical point. The divine fire doesn't descend to initiate the worship or to cause God to show up. It descends to seal it with sovereign approval.
It's God's response.
It's God's response. The consumption of the olah by heavenly fire is God's yes to his people's obedient, prepared worship. It's not the catalyst for his presence. His presence was already there, invoked through the covenant. The olah doesn't attract God. It's the vehicle upon which God's glory, already present, spectacularly manifests and consumes the worship, acknowledging it.
Okay, God's fire approves the rightly ordered worship. And this contrast is made even clearer, tragically, by the story that happens immediately afterwards, right, in Leviticus 10.
Yes, the tragic story of Aaron's sons, Nadab and Abihu.
What did they do?
They offered strange fire, Zara, the text says, fire which God had not commanded, and the result was their immediate death. It's a very stark and sobering warning.
Strange fire. What does that mean?
Well, it is indeed crucial. The fire in Leviticus 9 is divine initiative, from God down, accepting ordered sacrifice. It's his stamp of approval on a worship that followed his prescribed path, his ladder. The strange fire of Leviticus 10, however, seems to represent human initiative trying to go upwards, but ignoring the divine order. It's an attempt, perhaps, to manipulate worship, maybe force a response, to approach God on purely human terms, on their terms, an act of presumption.
So trying to bypass the process.
Possibly. Or just doing it their own way. This explains why Leviticus chapter 1, which details the Olah offering protocol, makes so much sense being placed where it is, right after this catastrophe. It ensures that any subsequent offering fire lit by the priests is a commemoration of God's initial favor, his acceptance back in chapter 9, not a repetition of human presumption or an attempt to force his hand like Nadab and Abihu did.
So following the rules for the Olah isn't just ritualism, it's guarding against that strange fire.
Exactly. An Olah offered from an impure heart, without the preceding steps of restitution and purification, without being in communion, well, it would essentially be strange fire, an uncommanded, presumptuous act trying to reach the climax without climbing the ladder.
Wow. Okay. So if we connect this now to the bigger picture, the New Testament, this understanding of the Olah as the climax of devotion, total surrender, this finds its ultimate fulfillment in Jesus, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. He truly embodies this perfectly.
How so?
Well, you could say his death seals the new covenant almost like an inaugural ziba, establishing that peace, that shared meal, that communion between God and us.
Okay, the communion part.
And his ongoing heavenly ministry interceding for us acts like a constant purifying jatat, cleansing us and ensuring our access to God.
The purification part.
But it's his entire life, culminating in his resurrection and especially his ascension, that truly fulfills the function of the perfect Olah.
His whole life as an offering?
Yes, his life was a kind of living Holocaust, wasn't it? A continuous ascent of obedience and devotion to God. Think of Philippians 2, how he emptied himself, became obedient even to death on a cross.
That total surrender.
That death was the supreme moment of this consecration, the total unreserved surrender of the obedient servant, given completely for us. That was the ultimate act on the cross.
But you emphasize the ascension, too.
Yes, because the most literal fulfillment of the Olah symbolism, the ascending offering, is in his resurrection and, crucially, his ascension. He's the offering that truly ascended Allah to the Father.
Not as symbolic smoke.
No, but in glorious physical reality, his ascension to sit at the right hand of the Majesty is the definitive image of the perfectly accepted offering, the perfect human consecration reaching God's very presence.
And the Father's response, like the fire in Leviticus 9.
Exactly. The Father's acceptance of this perfect Olah is manifested in the divine fire of Pentecost. The sending of the Holy Spirit, which seals and ignites the worship of the New Covenant people, the Church, empowering us to live our own lives of ascent.
That's powerful. This deep truth then radically transforms how we should understand our own lives, our own worship.
It really does.
The Apostle Paul, who clearly understood this rich theological background, urges us in Romans 12.1, he says, "Present your bodies as a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable to God, which is your spiritual worship."
And that living sacrifice is the New Testament expression of the Olah. It's our response.
Oh, Olah.
Yes, it's a call to total consecration, a life that ascends in devotion to God. However, and this is key, this call is only possible because Christ has already ascended that liturgical ladder perfectly for us. His blood has sealed an unbreakable new covenant of peace and communion, the ultimate Ziba. His priestly ministry continuously purifies us. The ongoing jatat ensuring our access to God's presence is always there, always open.
So this means we don't offer ourselves, we don't try to live this consecrated life in order to gain God's favor or to somehow make him happy with us.
No, not at all. We offer ourselves because we have already been accepted in Christ, because he already completed the journey.
It's a response, not a requirement to get in.
Exactly. Our consecration, our total surrender of our lives is meant to be the joyful, natural response of a heart that's just overwhelmed by his grace. It's a grateful yes to his overwhelming love and his incredible initiative towards us first.
So, wrapping this up then.
In conclusion, yeah, the Ola is absolutely not the starting point of the sacrificial system. It's its culmination, its ultimate expression. God's relationship with his people is founded entirely on his grace, on an already established covenant and presence that he initiated.
And the bronze altar, that place of fire and sacrifice, it isn't the entrance gate you have to force your way through to get to God.
Not at all. It's the sacred destination, you could say. A place of consummation, where the worshiper's devotion, already purified and already in communion with God, reaches its highest form of surrender, total self-giving.
And Christ is the perfect model of that.
Christ is the perfect Ola, embodied this total surrender completely. And through his finished work, he invites us to follow him, not to try and earn salvation, but to live it out in joyful ascending consecration, because we already have it.
So the Levitical system, seen this way, it's not some grim manual for appeasing an angry deity.
No, it's more like a divine grammar, teaching us how to respond appropriately, step by step, to the overwhelming, initiating grace of God's covenant love.
Which leaves us with a pretty important question to think about, doesn't it?
Hmm.
Knowing all of this, knowing God's grace came first, knowing communion is already possible through Christ, what does your living sacrifice, your total surrender, your personal Ola, what does that look like as a response?
That's a great question.
Something to definitely chew on until our next deep dive. Welcome to the deep dive. Have you ever